Welcome to The Purpose Effect, the space where we get honest, we get intentional, and we get aligned with the life God designed for us. I am your host, Alesha, on Mondays. And of course, I have my friend David on Wednesdays, and we do it together on Fridays. And here's the thing, our mission is simple: to help you stop floating through life and to start living with purpose, clarity, and action. And I will tell you guys, today I have an amazing guest that truly demonstrates what it's like to live a life of purpose, and how when we act that out, how there's this massive ripple effect. So let me introduce you guys to Justin Prince. He is a global entrepreneur and the founder of Make Wellness. It's the world's leading bioactive peptide company. And I don't know if you guys have been following things, but peptides are amazing. Over the course of his career, he has built several multi-million-dollar businesses generating more than $2.6 billion in revenue. That sounds crazy, doesn't it? He's an international recognized keynote speaker who has shared his story on stages in over 30 countries and regularly works with founders, executives, and high-performing teams. But here's what I think is really powerful about his story, you guys, is he did not follow a traditional path. He was raised in a broken home with no college education, and he began his professional life working in construction, flipping pizzas, and selling products from a mall kiosk. His first business venture left him financially underwater, and his earliest breakthrough came while raising his children in a one-room loft above his in-laws' garage. But here's the thing. Today, Justin is known for his grounded, practical approach to leadership and personal growth. His work is built on lived experience, disciplined personal development, and a deep belief that ordinary people can create extraordinary lives when they take ownership of their decisions, habits, and direction. And I can just tell you, just by reading that, does he not need to be on our show? You guys, it lines up so much with the heart and the purpose behind the Purpose Effect. So with that being said, Justin, thank you so much for your time and for being here on the Purpose Effect today. How are you?
I'm great. I love it. And man, what an honor to be on with you. I love this idea of the purpose effect being like both on purpose and living a life of purpose. And the very first chapter in my book, I wrote a story about John Maxwell. I'll share this with you real quick because to me, just leads right into your passion. So I went to Costa Rica with him. If those of you that know John Maxwell, he's Inc. magazine says he's the world's foremost authority on leadership, written 100 plus books, sold 40 plus million copies. And we went to like the U.S. Embassy, met with the U.S. ambassador. We went to the black tie event at the theater, National Theater, with all the business people. Went to the police graduation with like 3,000 police cadets. It's like totally surreal experience. But one of the stops we make is at a local university, and he's teaching these Costa Rican students. There's about 500 students, and if you guys can imagine, it's like a theater style. So there's a stage and like a theater style with seats going up. And if you've ever watched him teach, he'll sit like on a high chair. He'll have a table next to him, and he'll teach from an iPad. It's just kind of how he teaches, and his content's so rich that he can sit there and teach, and it's all good. So he's teaching and teaching. These kids are college age, so they're 18 to, let's call it 21, 22. And then Ashley, all of a sudden, he just stops and puts his hand on his chin, crosses his legs, and doesn't say anything. Just it's like something hit him, hit his heart or hit his mind. And he said, if there's only one thing I could share with you kids that would have the most impact in your life, it would be this one thing. But he just doesn't say anything. He sits back. It's like he's like processing this thought, this moment. Long story short, he finally stands up. He doesn't say anything. Stands up off the stool and walks to the edge of the stage and just holds his arms straight up in the air like this. Doesn't say anything, just holds his arms straight up in the air. Well, sitting next to him in the table next to him is a guy named JV, Juan Verrecken. Juan is the Latin American John Maxwell. He's his interpreter, but he's also his ambassador for all of Latin America. So he's watching John do this, and John's just sitting there on the edge of the stage, hands straight up. So JV gets up off his stool, walks over next to John, puts his arms straight up in the air like this. So both of them are sitting there, no one's saying anything. And it's 15 seconds have passed, 20, it feels like 3 minutes, almost like an awkward silence in a way. For sure, a dramatic pause, if not almost awkward silence. And finally, about 30 seconds in, a Costa Rican student stands up, an 18-year-old young woman. She holds her arm straight up in the air. No one said anything. And then another person stands up, another person, the whole audience stands up, holds their arm straight up in the air. And John, with his arm straight up in the air, he said, if there's only one thing I could share with you that would have the most impact in your life, it would be this. Live an intentional life. He said, most people have uphill hopes and downhill habits. And he said, you don't accidentally go up hills, you only intentionally go uphill. And all success is all uphill all the way. So live an intentional life. And to me, a life of intention is a life on purpose and a life of purpose.
Mhm.
And it's really the foundation of any change is just saying, I want to be intentional. What do I want with my life? And I don't want to just drift and just have life happen to me. I want to actually intentionally go create and design a life, design emotions, design my body, where it's getting the physical fitness, design my happiness, design my health in a way that I'm living with intention versus just
Yeah.
drifting. So I love this idea of
Yeah.
being both of purpose and on purpose.
Yeah. And I think it is one of those things that the more I talk to people, the more I realize I was not that different of just floating through life. I think a lot of people are doing that. And so, how can we go out and say, hey, just one shift in your life, one thought process could change everything. And then it's that it keeps going and it keeps a ripple effect, but it is hard. It's not easy. And I know you've gone through even just in your journey, and I've just read up on a lot of what you've accomplished. It's not been easy. Like you've had to push through some pretty tough stuff. What kept you going even when it seemed like that hill was just impossible to climb?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, we basically start with like how would I accomplish the dream? How would I accomplish the goal? And I think the proper order is what I call what, why, and how is basically in that flow. So the first thing you want to do, and this plays into being on purpose, is basically what do you want to accomplish, right? You clarify what you want. The more you're never going to like accidentally hit bullseye. I tell people success is not going to attack you. You have to clarify what you want. And the clarity will create power. It's like a crystal clear 2020 vision of what you're trying to accomplish. In fact, it starts to remove roadblocks and
Mm.
clutter of just this is what I want. The second thing though is why. And like you start creating emotional anchors. A friend of mine, his name is James Lawrence. He's known as the Iron Cowboy. If you've ever heard of him or read his books, wrote a book called Iron Hope. Long story short, in 2008, he was in the mortgage business. The real estate market collapsed. He basically went
Yeah.
bankrupt, lost everything, had 5 little kids. His wife during Thanksgiving did a turkey trot, like a 5K. And he went and ran it with her. And he's like, dude, that night, he goes, first of all, I had moms passing me pushing strollers. I was just so out of shape. And he goes, that night, my knee swelled all the way up. And he's, oh my gosh, like here is like his financial world's falling apart. Now his health is, he's, oh my gosh, what
Yes.
am I doing with my life? So he decides to run the 5K, but not have his body fall apart. And then he ultimately runs a 10K and then ultimately runs a marathon. And then he ultimately gets into swimming and biking and does a short distance little triathlon. And then he eventually does a half triathlon. And he said, you know what? I'm going to try an Ironman. He goes and does an Ironman. Oh my gosh. Long story short, he starts setting out like these Guinness Book World Records. And he
Yeah.
ultimately does Ironmans in each one of the different continents and stuff. Anyway, long story short, he says, I'm going to do 50 consecutive Ironmans in 50 consecutive days in
Oh,
all 50 states. It's what they call the 50, 50,
no.
50. It's like the greatest feat in human history. And those of you that have kids, you can imagine just taking your kids on commercial airlines and then in an RV in all 50 states in 50 days would be just like the chore of our
It'd
lives,
be horrible.
let alone jumping out and running an Ironman every single morning. So on day 4, they started in Hawaii and then Alaska, but on commercial, you can even imagine. You'd run it, jump to the airport, fly to the next place, jump to the airport, fly to the mainland. There are 4 states in. And his little girl, she's 12 years old at the time. Her name's Lucy. And she looks at him. His toenails are falling off. His shin splints. He can barely run because of his shin splints. His little girl looks at him, and with all the little courage of a 12-year-old, all the faith of a 12-year-old, she looks at him and she goes, Daddy, you look terrible. And he goes, sweetheart, I feel terrible. And she looks at him and she goes, Daddy, together we can do this. She goes, I'll meet you every night for the 5K. Because what he would do is he would do the 2.4 mile swim in the morning, and then he'd ride the 112-mile bike, and then he would run the marathon. And at the end of the marathon, they would have him jump on and he would do a little 5K because the community would run with him. So his little girl said, I'll meet you for this 5K. So he said, that date with my daughter became my why. It became
Mm.
my reason. And he said, I wasn't going to let her down. But then here's the lesson for all of us. He said, I quickly learned that one reason wasn't enough. One why wasn't enough. He said, I had to create a bag full of whys and a bag full of
Mm.
reasons. So you could reach in and pull another one out. And you think of his other daughter and his other daughter. And you think of his son and you think of his wife. And think of his donors. He would think of his haters, people that told me he couldn't do it. He just kept pulling out more reasons to keep going. So when his legs started breaking down, he got in a bad bike accident and dislocated separated his shoulder. And like, why do you keep going? Because he clarified what he wanted, and then he had whys and reasons, emotional attachment to what you're trying to accomplish. And then the third thing is then the how. The how's actually the easy part. But most people, Tony Robbins says it best. He goes, most people get caught up in the tyranny of how. It's just, oh my gosh, how am I going to accomplish all this stuff? It's listen, if you clarify what you want, if you get really clear on why you want it, then the how starts. You like never leave the side of inspiration without taking action. You start moving towards the dream, moving towards the goal. Direction can be more important than destination. And you just keep on that dream with a laser-like focus. Even if you get off course, get back on course, because the whys keep you going. So to me, when you get knocked down, and if you're going to go create a significant life, this will happen. It's not an if, it's just a when or how hard. But when you get knocked down, you ultimately anchor back down into what do I want? Why do I want it? And then the how becomes apparent, easy. You just keep moving yourself forward.
It's so powerful. And I think even the more you push into that and the more you go, okay, I'm dreaming big, I'm going for it. And you know that those hard times are going to happen. It's also what lesson can be learned in the process. Like, how can I build from this so that the next step that I take gets even bigger and it keeps building? And I think it's also learning to appreciate the process, even
Yes.
though it's really hard and uncomfortable. Okay, I want to hit a little bit on you. I know you wrote a book and it's
Mhm.
called Be the One. Can you share a little bit about that? When I was it's so powerful. And so I'd love for the audience to hear about this book and the premise and maybe even what made you decide to write it.
Yeah. A couple quick thoughts. So there's two things to start with on the name. First of all, you are the one. So if you think about, your parents. So just in your mind, you think about your mom and dad. Those of you that knew your grandparents, think about your grandparents. Some of you knew your great grandparents. If you were to go up 12 generations, your parents, your great grandparents, your grandparents, great, keep going up. 12 generations was 4,094 people. So it was 4,094 people from all over the world that came together to create you. And you are the one. And you are the one that these 4,094 people lived for, bled for, cried for, died for, gave everything they had for, was for you to have this moment. Like every breath that you have this whole thing's a gift, right? And it's a gift that's been paid for by a lot of people. And when you recognize that you're the one, it's a shift in identity. And success is an identity process. You're never going to outperform the way you see yourself. So if you see yourself as a loser, you're not going to show up and play the game like a winner. If you see yourself like a winner, you wouldn't roll over and quit like a loser. It wouldn't be consistent with your identity. There's a story told of two kids, one of which stole the candy. And they said to the child, did you steal the candy? And the little boy goes, I didn't steal the candy. They said to the other little boy, did you steal the candy? And the little boy said, I don't steal. So I didn't steal that particular piece of candy. That's an action. I don't steal is an identity. And over time, you'll be consistent with the way you see yourself. And that's the first part. The second part is to be. You'll notice the book's not called Become the One. It's you already are the one, which is both the invitation and the challenge of life. The invitation is to be the one you were born to be. The challenge of life is to be the one you were born to be, because you've been given this gift of your life, and your life has value and purpose and meaning. You're not just randomly here. And so this idea of be the one that lives a life, be the one that makes new decisions, that future generations look up in their family lineage and they say, it was her, it was him. She's the one for our family. She's the one that taught the financial principles, or he's the one that broke the chain of abuse or addiction, or she's the one that taught us, that brought our faith to our family, whatever the thing might be for you. But you're the one that lives a life and writes a story that they know who you are. Your story, to your point, has purpose and is on purpose. And that's the idea of be the one. Now, I hope that the book inspires and touches people's heart, but I also hope it's a practical teacher, because my folks got divorced at age 12. I have no professional background, as you alluded to. And I remember I did a magazine interview once. It was like on leadership or something. And we're taking off the microphones after. And the guy's like, how did this happen? How did you go from like no professional background, no college education, like no business being in business, to like doing billions of dollars in revenue? And the truth is, what happened, I wanted to put down into simple frameworks, simple formulas, simple ways to think about it, to process these things that I've learned and as along that way. And so that's why I wrote the book. And it's almost on a daily basis, for sure on a weekly basis. Last night, I'm on a walk with my wife, It's 9:30 at night. We go for a little walk. It's pitch black. We're just in our like neighborhood. And I see someone walking up. It's a friend of mine. It's a neighbor of ours. He's got his headphones on. He's on a walk. And he goes, I'm listening to your book, Be the One right now. And I can hear it as he puts the headphones off. I can hear my voice. And on about a daily, for sure, weekly basis, you have people say, hey, I just want you to know that book changed my life. And so that to me is a great gift, is be able to take these things that you learned and put it into little frameworks where people can apply it to their life and create and design and live an intentional life.
Yeah. It's so when I look at the how a life can shift when you begin to realize you have a choice in it too. Like you actually have a choice in how your life plays out. And I think oftentimes we just sit back, oh man, oh, it was such a horrible day or whatever. And how much did we set that into motion and how much control do we have? And so the idea of being the one, taking control of what's been passed down to you, but
Yeah.
also recognizing you have control of what you pass down. And like we talked about even at the beginning of this, it's going to take work. It's not going to be super easy. We're not just going to be able to just sit back. But then you think of the ripple effects that the choices you had to keep persevering, to keep going, even when it got really tough. And now sharing that wisdom too. I think that's the other thing is there's always the bigger picture in mind. It's
Yeah.
never this, we always see the small little picture and it's this bigger picture of seeing, okay, what's the bigger purpose? So I love how you capture that. I think just even in being the one and that big picture and what we can do. Another thing I was reading on, you were talking just the other day on the rule of 33. And I found this really awesome. And I'd heard it before, but I would love for you to share even the power of that, because I think that is a concept that can tie into how do we live with purpose, and it requires being intentional. Can you share a
Yeah.
little bit about that?
Yeah, I was kind of raised up with kind of the Jim Rohn philosophy that you are an accumulation of the top 5 people you surround yourself with most, which I think is there's a ton of wisdom there. The challenge, though, if we're just being practical, is that you're not always with 5 people that are freaking awesome all the time. In fact, you have the coworker at work that's maybe whatever, or maybe the family member or whatever. So you're not always with just these 5 dynamic people all the time. And plus, in addition to that, life, the secret to living is giving. It's not just always about being with people that are so awesome. Sometimes you're the one in the room that's awesome because you're pouring into someone else. And my son's 22 years old. He created a business called 20s by Design. He's helping 20-year-olds to live on purpose and by design. And he does retreats. And one of the retreats he did at our house, this is about, let's call it 8 days ago or 10 days ago. Does this retreat at our house, and he had me keynote for him. It's convenient that I could go out there and keynote for him. I don't charge him very much to do it. And so I go out there and share with these kids that are in their 20s. From, I think my daughter was there at 18, and then the oldest was 29, but you can get an idea. These are kids that are in their 20s or just starting their careers, etc. And if you imagine that 33% of your time goes hyper intentionally or in your point on purpose to people that are in essence below you on the journey, not below you in life. We're all equal in the sight of God. But just think about it this way. It's like you're older than them. You've been married longer than them. Maybe you've been in your career longer than they have. Maybe they're getting started and you make way more money than they make. The point is you're ahead of them on the journey, right? Because when you pour into those people, you can really learn a lot through you being the mentor, you teaching
Yeah.
and guiding and so on. So that's 33% there. The other 33% would be people that are basically on your level. You make 100 grand a year, they make 105 grand a year. You have 2 kids, they have 2 kids.
Yeah.
You're 32, they're 34. Like you guys are this, you can mastermind and game plan and strategize and hold each other accountable and call each other out when you're falling off the path. But you can also cheer each other on and pray together, laugh together, cry together, the whole thing. But then the last 33% is people that are ahead of you on the journey. I spoke for my son on Saturday, and then Sunday, my wife and I got on a plane and went to West Palm Beach in Florida, and we were masterminding all week with Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi and John Maxwell and John Klepchak and just this amazing group of people. And I share that with you to say that in that room, I was the one taking a bunch of notes. I was the one learning and listening and being poured into and having new ideas hit me. And so I was intentional that week to be with my 33% up there. In this case, were above me or ahead of me on the journey. The day before, I was with the 33% that were in essence behind me on the journey. And then I spend quality, intentional time with people that are where I'm at. We can strategize together. So the rule of 33 basically says be intentional with people ahead of you at your level and then people that you're ahead of in the journey of life. You can pour into those below you, you can learn from those above you, and you can strategize and work with and be held accountable by those that are at the same spot that you are.
Which I think is awesome that you bring that up with the idea of even the people that are ahead of you, because looking at your bio, lots of people say, you've reached the pinnacle. Like, you know, you've reached it. Like, what an awesome thing. But I think the more you go up, it's, well, there's no
There's
cap.
levels. Yeah, just levels to
Yeah.
the game. Yeah,
Yeah.
and by the way, to your point, you just to exclamation your point. It's like when I go to my company events, like I'll take pictures with people, I'll shake hands, which I totally love. I remember when I wanted pictures with those people, so it's such an honor, and I'm grateful to do it. Dude, when I'm last weekend, I'm taking pictures with these guys. I'm like, hey,
Yes.
can I get your picture? That kind of thing. And it's just, that's a good thing. It's a good thing that there's always levels to the game. There's always people that can inspire you, no matter how much success you've had, or no matter, by the way, no matter how far you've fallen, there's someone else that's been through worse than you. And for that matter, maybe had more success than you that can pour into you and to help you go to the next level.
Yeah. And it does go back to living with the intention.
Yeah.
In order to have that have those different groups that you're that you're working with or that you're around, you have to be intentional with that.
Yeah.
I think if anybody, they go, I want to live a life of purpose and I want to be successful, it requires you have to give up something. You have to give up just this floating through life. You have to be intentional, but the rewards are outweigh any of it. And you
Yeah.
can see that then when you think of your son now doing like these retreats. I need to get him on the podcast.
He would be a better guest than me. He's a really soulful kid. Thing that there's so many things about him that I'm proud of, and the decisions he's made that I'm proud of, and that goes for all my kids. But one thing I think he does a great job. So he's 22, and I think there's two thoughts I think you could have. One is, what does a 22-year-old have to teach anyone? Because they're still learning. But then the second thing is, a 22-year-old could think, what do I have to teach? Here's what's genius about him is he has accumulated a ton of wisdom over the years. He's always been one of those people that's kind of like an old soul. Like when he was 15, he's 29, just he's like an old soul. But the thing that he's done is he's a great facilitator. He's created so many frameworks or has learned so many frameworks that he can so imagine if he sat down with you and me, he could ask us questions and walk us through frameworks that it's not that he's so much teaching us as much as he's just asking us questions and we're teaching and learning ourselves. And so it doesn't matter how old you are, those questions are good questions to ask yourself. And so it's a really beautiful, it's a good example for all of us that you're not too young, you're not too old. You can use frameworks and formulas and share other people's wisdom, but do it in a curated journey for people that can transform their life. And you're simply just the guide. You don't have to be the hero of the story.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so awesome. I definitely will be sending you a message afterwards to get in contact with him and have him on here, because I think our purpose can start whenever we want it to. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to, we don't have to be a certain age. We don't have to be like, oh, okay, now I can walk out my purpose. It can start as soon as we're ready to put in the effort and to put in the time and commitment. And it's just such an amazing thing. I know we're coming to an end, but is there one thing that maybe stands out to you the most, of one key takeaway when I look at the people that I really connect with a lot that are just trying to find that purpose? They're trying to walk it out, but it's hard. What would be one maybe word of advice that you would give them?
So I'll share with you one word that you could think about, and it's the word until. So I tell people the word until can guarantee your success. And there's the famous scroll from Og Mandino and the greatest salesman in the world. It's scroll number 3, and it says, I will persist until I succeed. And most people persist until it gets hard. Most people persist until it gets hot, and most people persist until the client quits or the customer stops or till they get the rejection or they go through that really challenging relationship. That's how long most people persist. But my friend, you just own this idea that I will persist until I succeed. The University of Pennsylvania did a study, 22-year study, 350,000 participants. They said there was a thinking pattern that began to emerge that they said was predictive of success. And the thinking pattern was optimism. And they said there was 2 characteristics of optimistic people. Number 1 is that they had unrealistic expectations they'd be successful. Your dreams and goals probably are unrealistic, which probably is a good thing. And mine were unrealistic. That's probably a good thing. Kind of keeps us like, man, we think we can do it. We're optimistic.
Yeah.
Then the second thing that they noticed is that they kept trying new things until they succeeded. My friends, it's just, you just get back up until you succeed. You push through until you succeed. You read the book until you succeed. You listen to the podcast until you succeed. You meet the people until you succeed. You grow and change and develop for how long? until you succeed. You say, I got to get past this wall. Listen, we can bang against it. If that's not working, we can try and go over it. We can try and go under it. We can try and go around it on both sides. We could try and get other people to help us. We could try and improve our tools and our systems and see if we can find weak spots in it. But listen, if you just say, I'm going to get through this wall, I'm going to get to the other side, you just do it until you do it. And that little word, if I had to sum up my whole career, it was just, and I persisted until I succeeded. And you just got back up when you got knocked down. The Japanese proverb says down 6, up 7. You just keep going. And that's what I'd leave you with today. If you're wondering, today's a great day to persist until you succeed.
I love that, Justin. Thank you so much. Thank you for your words of wisdom and just taking the time to be on here. And thank you for living a life of purpose, for actually being that example that we can look at and go, okay, that's what it looks like. And so the impact that you're having is so powerful. And I'm just so grateful for you. So thank you for being on here today and taking the time. Like I said, I'm gonna get your son on here next time.
Let's do it. I appreciate your high vibe and your passion and your high frequency and the value that you add. So I'm honored to be able to do it.
Thank you. We're going to wrap this up. So you guys, thank you for listening to The Purpose Effect. If this episode spoke to you today, share it with a friend, subscribe. We're on all major platforms. Help us spread this movement of living a life of purpose. And remember, you're called, you're capable, and you were created with intention. Now go and live it.